Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of Out of Left Field. I'm Kevin with Jonathan. Jonathan, how do we follow us?
Yeah, so we are on all the socials on X and Facebook, Out of Left Field Podcast, Instagram as well, handle Out of LF Pod. The video episodes live on YouTube, and we put clips out onto our X. The audio copies of the episodes live on Spreaker. We have a Substack, but everything is labeled Out of Left Field, or handle Out of LF Pod.
Yes, and of course we talk Mariners, Blue Jays, Canadian baseball. We won't be talking Canadian baseball tonight or this episode because we're going to be focusing a lot of our conversation around the trade deadline, which is on Monday, August the 3rd, which, by the way, we will be live doing one of our first live shows for after the trade deadline, figuring out what the Mariners, the Blue Jays, and Major League Baseball did. We'll discuss what we'll kind of look at that as we go on talking about the teams and where we're at. But we do need to start with some significant news out of Vancouver involving the Major League Baseball here. And this is, of course, we have done some episodes talking about Vancouver and Major League Baseball and the process of getting a expansion bid for Major League Baseball, and they have come up with a ownership group. It is Zach Ross. He is the CEO of Cape Group here in Vancouver, where I am. By the way, Jonathan is in Victoria. They designed Camden Yards, which is in Baltimore, PNC Park, which is in Pittsburgh, and Oracle Park, which is in San Francisco. Now, Jonathan, I believe you've been to two of them. Have you been to the Baltimore one?
Out of those three, I've been to San Francisco, and
Oh, okay.
it's
Sorry, I thought for some
spectacular.
reason for some reason I had a thought in my head that you went to Pittsburgh. My apologies. But I think we agree that those three ballparks are one of the best. One of the they're on the upper echelon of must-see baseball games that you do need to go to on the bucket list. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
have never heard anybody complain about going to Oracle Park in San Francisco. PNC Park is an absolutely beautiful park to look at, to watch a game at. And of course, Camden Yards, Oriole Park at Camden Yards is a historic one as well. So, pedigree of this group and what they've designed seems really excellent. That I think is, I think that's my first impression is this is they didn't design Tropicana Field, with all due respect to Tropicana Field. Um, that these are the upper echelon of ballparks that they've designed, kind of newer, modern ballparks. So that's a good sign to me, first of all.
yeah.
Um, Now, Kenson also said that the acronym is TSFB, but it's the Show Vancouver bid is going to be responsible for all costs and financial risk associated with preparing and advancing its MLB bid. So the translation of that, no taxpayer money for now. Now we do have a civic election coming up in Vancouver, and there is some other significant news that does tie into this conversation. And this is around BC Place. Now, Amar Doman is the owner of the BC Lions. He wants to buy BC Place for the Lions. The Whitecaps, of course, are in the situation where they also want BC Place as well. So both of them are in contention for that. The province today said that it's not for sale, BC Place. Um, and also today, Axel Schuster spoke to the media, and he said that there are no encouraging developments in keeping the team in Vancouver. Now, there's been sort of a understanding with the Whitecaps that they are going to be going to Pacific Coliseum is kind of the theory being floated out there. We'll wait and see. The other significant news that came out of Vancouver on Thursday was a memorandum of understanding of a Canucks practice facility in Britannia. Now, this is near Commercial Drive, kind of the Little Italy area. So you could see Rogers Arena from and BC Place from where the community center is. So it's not too far away. It's close to the rink. It sounds like the original plan is going to be it's a separate rink. There is an actual hockey rink there. I went over there Thursday. There's a public library. There's just a bunch of stuff there, but there's also a hockey rink over there. Kind of an area where um, I would describe it as a variety of people live there. Older families, younger families, single families. Um, it's a hodgepodge, which is, I think, a good thing. And kind of just a very funky area. That area is a really interesting area. So it's going to be interesting to see how if that goes through. Of course, we'll wait and see on that. So
Yeah,
all of that.
and
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
going back a couple of weeks now, there was also the announcement from the city of Surrey that the Vancouver Giants Western Hockey League team has agreed to be the anchor tenant for a new 10,000 seat arena build in Surrey. I believe it was a block north of the Lions practice facility.
Right.
So and that's 2 or 3 years away. Um, but I think the moral of the story here is there's a lot of players who need or want real estate in Vancouver. And as it relates to baseball, for me, it's great to see that they're still going after this and they're getting organized for the next step. Whether it goes all the way, we've talked about it earlier in the season. We'll see about that, but my impressions of it haven't really changed. I think just the fact that we're talking about this seriously and going after pursuing the thought of a second Major League Baseball team in Canada seriously. The first for the West Coast, which would be the first ever for the West Coast. I think the fact that we're even doing this right now is going to be a net positive, no matter if it goes all the way or not.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on, I've been, of course, in reflection mode and thinking mode for the summer. But one of the things that I have been thinking about in terms of sports radio, I, I, I may be the only one, Jonathan, but I think that the Canadian sports talk industry in general has focused way too much on hockey, and I think it has alienated a good section of their audience that are not hockey fans or not impressed with hockey for whatever reason, which
Yeah,
I think is a whole other different subject of where we're not going to get into that. But I think when you look at the World Cup and the ratings and kind of the popularity there, the Whitecaps are expecting 35,000 people to be back at BC Place for their game on Saturday. The Lions had, I think, over 20,000 coming in to their first game back from all of their travels after since the World Cup. And where the Canucks are in general right now, I think specifically the Vancouver market needs a subject change.
yeah,
Desperately needs a subject change. I think that it is, I think the Canucks conversation, and I'm saying this as a hockey guy, is becoming just too exhausting for people. I don't know how much longer you can talk about getting a high round. Like, the season that we're about to go into with the Vancouver Canucks is already a waste because the expectation here is to get a top 3 pick. So we're already talking about June 2027.
Right.
And I just don't know for the audience how much they can honestly take of that being the majority of the sports conversation in Vancouver. And that's why I think things like Major League Baseball is a massive help. CFL, Major League Soccer, talking about other things, I think just makes it just so much easier to the palate, to the brain, um, for everybody when there's
You're
other things to talk about. Like
kind of,
we all
yeah.
want to go to. Sorry,
And
before you, like when you go to a party, do you all want to talk about the same thing over and over and over again, or do you want to talk about different things? That's
totally.
kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. And Canada is proving itself as a sports country, not just a hockey country anymore. We just went through the World Cup and what that did. Um, you you talk about on a fan level the support that the Whitecaps have in Vancouver. Uh, the Edmonton Elks CFL is going to have 30,000 people or more at their next game. You want to go lower level baseball, which is kind of my niche. You have um, the Edmonton Riverhawks College Summer League baseball team average 5,200 people a game this summer. In Edmonton, which is an Oilers town, but they need something to do in the summer. I just got back from Okotoks, which is a bedroom community of Calgary, and on a Wednesday night, they put 6,300 people in the park. And on the Friday night, they put 6,400 people in the park. We could go all day about different examples, but Canada's a well-rounded sports country, and um, it's great to see everybody on the rise. And yeah, uh, keeping keeping on the dream of Major League Baseball team to Vancouver is a fun dream to have. Um,
Yep.
I think when it comes down to it, there's a very good list of U.S. markets that I like to plan to teams. But yeah, it's I'm all for this. So
The other thing that I was just thinking about too is uh, um, I the price of now watching the hockey games online, that went up again. The price of going to hockey games now are expensive, and just people are. I think some people are just feeling priced out of hockey. That I do think that people want to still want their sports entertainment.
yep,
So you talk about the 6,300 going to a game there. I mean, that's an affordable ticket for people right now, and I think that that's something. I think hockey is missing that sort of. Is it fair to say that hockey is acting in arrogance? Is that
oh,
the wrong?
completely.
Like I feel like that is kind of where I what I'm feeling right now. Um, I just I I just think other sports are walking in more humility than hockey is right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. We have we'll repost some of our Major League Baseball thoughts where because we talked about that a few during the beginning of the season, but we'll find them on our podcast, find them on YouTube. We'll repost them again as well. Also, before we another thing I wanted to talk about is Tommy Hutton, and Tommy Hutton is retiring at the end of the season. You're like, why are we talking about Tommy Hutton for those that are of a younger vintage? Because Tommy Hutton played with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1978. He also played with the Montreal Expos from 78 to 81. And on a personal note, he played with one of my favorite baseball players growing up, Gary Carter. Rest in peace, by the way. I used to pattern my batting stance like Gary Carter, but I couldn't hit. Anyway, he was also a color commentator for the Expos from 1985 to 86 and a color commentator for the Blue Jays from 1990 to 96. He's currently commentating with the Miami Marlins. They are doing a ceremony in a couple of weeks to honor Tommy Hutton. Get a chance to see that if you can. Get a chance to listen to him calling games for the Expos and the Blue Jays. It is part of Canadian history. And I did just think it was important for us to discuss that he is a part of the baseball vernacular. I mean, is he as significant as Buck Martinez? No, but he is part of Blue Jay lore, and I did think it was important to bring this up.
Absolutely. And he played for the Blue Jays in their second year in existence, and then was on the airwaves during the back-to-back World Series years. So it's a very important part of Blue Jays history, and he's had a great chapter with the Marlins as well. Joined them during their first World Series year in 1997, and had a couple year gap. So it hasn't been successive, but he's been with the Marlins since '97.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, great career.
Yeah.
Definitely worth giving him his due for sure.
Hutton was at the time. Hutton was calling the Blue Jay games, if I remember correctly. They were it was once a week on CTV. It wasn't at the time of the everyday Blue Jays game that we have now for both the Blue Jays and the Mariners. Speaking of the Mariners, let's go there. They just wrapped up a road trip that I don't think there's any other way to call this road trip, Jonathan, more than a disaster. They came into this road trip against Texas and the Dodgers, a half a game back to the Rangers for first place. They were in a wild card spot. They are now in third place. They are now have to, I believe, battle at least two other teams to get that wild card spot. It has been an unmitigated disaster. One stat I wanted to bring up for you here is, and just before I do that, give me a second here. Standings. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Standings is what I want. And so they're 2.5 games back at 53 and 57 to the one game over 500 Texas Rangers in first place in the American League West. They have 3 teams to pass to get to the wild card spot. The Baltimore Orioles, the Houston Astros, and the Minnesota Twins are all ahead of them. The Twins are who the Mariners face in this 4-game next homestand before the trade deadline. The Twins, who were down 8-0 and got a walk-off grand slam from Cody Clemens to come back and win. And we'll have to talk about them a little bit later here in our trade deadline conversation. But anyway, this is just an unmitigated disaster. There's no other way to put this. And it's not the Dodgers part of this road trip. I think coming out of this 1-2 is probably expected considering how good the Dodgers are. This is just a tough lineup. Everybody knows it. They're the 2-time World Series champions. We know that. I think it's what else had happened here, and including the starting pitching. I got to find this, make sure I have this stat, because this was just one thing that I noticed here. It was from I saw this. It was on the TV tonight. I'll credit Brady Farkas for finding it and screenshotting it. But it's their starting pitching. They only got one quality start this entire road trip. That was from George Kirby. And we'll get into Kirby here for one specific game. But the ERA during the last 12 road games for the Mariners, 6.83. Opponent batting average is 346, which is an incredible number considering I think there's only 3 or 4 players in the AL hitting over 300 this year in the entire year. OPS 1.016, home runs allowed 15. Their last home series or road series win was part of the 8-game winning streak, which was back in May against the Athletics. It was May 25th. They have not won a home road series since the end of May. We are now getting into August. They are 8-29 without hitting a home run, which is the worst in baseball. Brian Wu, who pitched tonight, and I'll get into him in a second, his home ERA is 2.02. His road ERA is 6.52. They are dead last slugging against the fastball. Now, that's last week they released their assistant hitting coach, Bobby Magdaleni, replaced him. But I think this is the time of year where I need to talk about it's trade deadline and we talk about players. I don't like to question people's job, Jonathan, especially after I just lost mine a couple weeks ago. But I think we need to have a serious conversation about Dan Wilson. There were a number of decisions this week that just boggled my mind. First one was Saturday against Texas. Julio Rodriguez is dealing with a concussion. I totally get that. I get that you want to DH him and you need to have a plan for him. I respect that. But Luke Raley is not a center fielder. And you played Luke Raley in center field. He dives it for a ball that I don't know what he was doing, but they're down 5-0 within the first 3 innings of a Saturday game against Texas, that you're already down 1 and you're not even coming back to that. You had to execute a huge comeback on Sunday against Texas. Canzone hits 2 home runs, and you win that one. Then Monday. Now, again, Julio is DHing because of concussion, so there's a specific plan for him, it seems. But this was not a day game after a night game. Cal Raleigh is not playing. He's not catching. He's not in first base. He's not playing. He's your best player. You're down 2-1 in this series. You need this win. Not only that, you are losing the season series to the Texas Rangers, which is a huge problem here in and of itself if you're trying to win the AL West. And you don't have him play. Not only that, George Kirby, who was 9-1 against Texas going into that game, got flat out rocked. Jock Peterson 2 home runs here, including a leadoff one. And I'm just like absolutely baffled. How do you not play Cal Raleigh in an important game? How do you not play your most important player in one of your most important games? Like, you have to think about this. Like, to me, I don't know, you can't go into the Dodgers series in LA thinking you're going to win this series. You should assume that you're probably going to go 1-2. So this is considering this, that I would call that series against the Dodgers a scheduled series loss. Come out of that at least trying to get a split with Texas. Give yourself a shot. And then this Dodger series doesn't hurt as much. But now you've just dug yourself into such an unbelievable hole that I don't know how it's going to be really hard to get out of. Other decisions before here, a few in this game specifically. And we'll start with the starting pitcher, Brian Wu. I wanted to remind you, 6.52 on the road. Why are they pitching him on the road? Why are they switching him with Bryce Miller, who's pitching tomorrow to Friday in Minnesota at home against Minnesota? Why not pitch Miller tonight and Brian Wu, who's better at home when you need these wins? Why are you putting Brian Wu in these situations? Number 2 tonight, again involving Luke Raley. So they get back into the game 5-2. It's at the bottom of the 6th. Sasaki comes out of the game. Jack Dreyer comes into the game. He's a left-hander. Luke Raley, who has hit 15 home runs this year. The bases are loaded. 15 home runs. They replace him with Rob Refsnyder. Rob Refsnyder strikes out. They get nothing out of that. The The inning after that, 2 on, Julio does nothing. Or actually, sorry, before I even get to that, Winston Wilson, who had a very tough game. I'm sorry, he didn't have a good game at third base here. Um, Wu walks Tucker. I think this was no, this was the five when he got to 5-0. Sorry, let's go back on this rant. This is how he gets to 5-0. Wu walks Tucker. Tucker steals second here, and then an infield singer were Wilson, who just took too damn long to get that ball out of his hand. I understand that was partly momentum, but just not the right time for that. And then a 3-run home run from Teoscar Hernandez, and the game is essentially over there. And then they replace Rayleigh with Refsnyder. They keep Wilson in the game because it's a lefty righty, and they get nothing to get back into the game. Julio has an opportunity to get close. Nothing happens there either. There's too many decisions to me with Dan Wilson that's the biggest question going into the trade deadline for the Mariners for me is what do you do at manager? Because he's clearly either we've talked a lot about this with the Blue Jays here, Jonathan, but I think with the Mariners, there's just a lack of cohesion with this team. And it's been happening all year. And I just don't. There doesn't seem to be a lot. It feels like there's a lack of passion coming from the Mariners bench right now, from that Mariners clubhouse.
Yeah, if I could jump in.
Sorry, I went very long there.
I watched most of the last 2 nights in the last 2 Dodger games, and similar observations from someone who doesn't watch them every night. Getting a chance to watch them twice in a row probably helped a little bit. Similar impressions where something just looks off. They never had all 3 parts of their game going at the same time. A couple of questions that were in my head for you. Just tell me about Weston Wilson. Not familiar with the name. What's he doing at third base right now?
Well, because right now you've got a Brendan Donovan injury who's been out since the middle of May, close to coming back. J.P. Crawford, he has something with his wrist. There's probably an IL stint coming. And we haven't talked about this, but they miss Gino Suarez.
Right.
So Wilson is playing basically. He's played a little outfield. He's played a little infield. There's been moments he's been productive, but there's also just moments like tonight where you just can't have that throw here on Thursday night. Pardon me for those. You can't have that throw. You can't. You got to get that done.
And there was a couple of plays when I was watching the game on Wednesday. It didn't make either. And there was a couple of balls in the outfield where the play wasn't made. Eric Lauer scoreless for 6. I think that one hit into the 7th inning, I think. Tonight was it scoreless through 5, something like that.
2 hits.
So more of a non-existent offense. And it's interesting that you bring up some starting pitching issues because something that's been in my head is an option for them, maybe, just sort of posing a question here, is there's been reports about Emerson Hancock expected to be traded. So in my head, I look at them as a team that is supposed to have more than enough starting pitching, but nobody's hitting right now. So in my head, I'm thinking trade Emerson Hancock for a bat. What do you think about that?
I think that sounds like the most likely scenario. Now, we'll get into this. So I guess we can get into this now. But one of the names that has been linked to the Mariners from Miami is Otto Lopez, who is, of course, a Canadian second baseman, as we have talked about here. I'm just having a heck of a. I'm just scratching my head. I'm trying to figure out why Miami would do that. Like I look at that Miami. I've watched that Miami Marlin team, and they're an exciting team. They're like they came back from the Phillies on Wednesday afternoon, 6-0 to win 8-6, and yeah, they're just a fun team to watch. That's really weird to me that Otto Lopez's name is on the trade market. I'm kind of surprised. I'm very skeptical about that. Like if I'm the Marlins, I'm not trying. I don't think I'm trading Otto Lopez. I think he's one of your core pieces. But I guess if you think you need pitching, you've got the Sandy Alcantara situation that may come and veer its head at some point. At some point, the Marlins have to move forward, right? Like I just don't. That's kind of where I'm at. I guess I'm not sure I buy what the Marlins are doing there, but I,
Well,
in terms of Hancock, I could see him being traded for a bat. You've got Cade Anderson who's ready to go. You've got Sloan who's ready to go. You've got pitching up the years. You're not going to get anything for Luis Castillo at this point in time. So if you're going to get a valuable bat, the person to get it for you is probably Emerson Hancock.
yeah. Um, yeah, and we saw more failed challenges the last couple of nights from Mariner hitters, including Arozarena. Yeah, really underwhelming from an outsider perspective the last couple nights. And I joked about it on X last night or on Wednesday night, but I'm kind of being serious that Mariners Dodgers right now, it's a very conflicting watch for a Blue Jays fan. Especially when you have Eric Lauer shutting out Mariners for 6 innings for the Dodgers. Just brings back all the emotions of last October.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, it's crazy how Lauer he started, he was the darling story last year, comes back over to North America having to reprove himself with no guarantees, was the Jays' most valuable pitcher for most of the year last year, has to go to the pen for the stretch drive, wasn't thrilled about that, and wanted to be a starter this year, wasn't performing. Started to have words with John Schneider in the media, and they shipped him off to the Dodgers, the spot where he's the least likely to have success as a starter. And I think his ERA is under 3 with the Dodgers. Just crazy to watch.
yeah. That is, yeah. That I could see why you're a little discombobulated there. Well, his the overall ERA for the year is 4.54. I'll pull his stats up here. And look, like you look at the Dodgers. Again, I wasn't expecting a series win against the Dodgers at all. Like we know who the Dodgers are. But that series against Texas, that was the one you needed. And you lost 3 of 4. You almost got swept out of Texas. Like like if it wasn't for Dominic Canzone, you're swept. Um it's just like just a huge hole in my opinion. And I guess the other question with the Mariners right now is Randy Arozarena. And that's the other guy that I wonder about. Like the two names for me for the Mariners for the trade deadline are Emerson Hancock, which we talked about, and Randy Arozarena, who is not, I don't believe, is coming back in 2027. Now, there's a theory up there is they offer him a contract at the end of the year. He says no. He goes off to free agency and they get a draft pick. This is a guy you might be able to get a lot more for if you trade now. because of the lack of right-handed bats in the trade in available right now at the trade deadline. You might be able to get something for Randy Arozarena if you trade him now, more than a compensatory draft pick. I would seriously consider this.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
playing
makes
well
sense.
enough. Yeah, he's playing well enough that I think someone will take a chance on him. And he's been a proven playoff performer. He's been also a proven playoff mystery too, but um, he's been mostly a playoff success. So the two positives this week is Dom Canzone, who's had 3 big home runs, and Cole Young. I think continues to grow into a very solid Major League Baseball hitter. Um, is he a second baseman for the rest of his career? I kind of doubt it. I could see him moving to first base at some point in his career, or the outfield, or DH. I just don't know if his arm is going to be. Don't know if that arm is going to be major league second base worthy going forward. But his hitting is top notch. He continues to grow as a hitter, and I still think he's one of this team's MVPs. He's been a bright spot in a very dull year for the Mariners.
Yeah, I saw them playing a little bit of sloppy baseball against the Dodgers, and if you're not hitting, you got to take care of the baseball.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing either one of those, you got to pitch the heck out of it. And they didn't have any of those things going the last couple days. In broad strokes, do you still see a route for this team to kick it in gear and be a serious threat?
Honestly, if I see them playing against the way I see it, if they play the White Sox in the first round in that wild card series, which is likely what's to happen here. Well, no, it would probably be Texas, actually, wouldn't it? Because they would be the third team, and the White Sox would get the Chicago White Sox could get a bye in the playoffs. Who would have thought of that?
That's
I
crazy.
I don't know if the Mariners win a game at this point. I don't know. Um, like we have seen teams. Look, there are teams that have won with less than 90 wins. Rangers, Braves have done it. So all things are possible. The American League still feels wide open. Um, but I'm not very confident at this point that the Mariners are a contending team. Like maybe they get their magic. But do they like? I look at the way that the Mariners are playing right now, and I look at the way that the Tampa Bay Rays are playing right now. I don't see how the Mariners win a game against the Tampa Bay Rays, even if they get that far. They just you mentioned it. They're not playing complete baseball. The Rays do everything right. The Mariners are barely doing one thing right. I just don't see it. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you want to head to a couple of trades that happened today?
Let's do it.
So a couple of smaller major league trades today. The Orioles acquiring catcher Jake Rogers from Detroit. Rogers on a Wednesday was DFA'd. Tonight's recording being Thursday, he was traded to the Orioles, who have Rutschman and Samuel Basayo both injured, so there's an immediate need behind the plate. Small, maybe reading too much into this, maybe not. Jake Rogers was Tarek Skubal's catcher while he was in Detroit. Tarek Skubal has talked a lot about how important Jake Rogers was to his Cy Young campaign. So it's interesting with so much talk around Tarek Skubal's possible trade that his catcher is out the door.
Yeah.
precursor to what the Tigers might be doing with Skubal coming up?
They had an interesting. They had a very interesting game on Wednesday against Baltimore. They were up. It was a Skubal start too, but they were
Yeah.
up nothing and lost to those
Yep.
Baltimore Orioles in extra innings. Um, I if I'm Detroit, I look at that roster. You got you got a kid in Kevin McConnell who I think is going to be a star for a long time. You got Dylan Dinger, who's a pretty solid catcher. Riley Green is a pretty Spencer Torkelson. There's some good players there. Um, you could get a haul for Tarek Skubal and really build that team into something really special that could control the American League for a little while. I would have to at least consider this at this point. And it might be better to do it this year rather than next year when he comes into free agency because a team will want one more year of control of Tarek Skubal. So, um, yeah, if I'm Detroit, I at least have to consider trading Tarek Skubal. I have to listen to offers.
For me, you have to do it. If I'm the Tigers, you have to do it. And it's partially for what you said. They have really good younger pieces there for the not so distant future. And you can get what's probably going to be a staggering offer for Tarek Skubal. All the big players and even some of the non-traditional players are rumored to be interested in Skubal. So this can be this can fast track your reboot if you're Detroit. I think you have to.
Yeah, Mark DeRosa on MLB Central talked about the Houston Astros and the opportunity did they have in front of them to do a reboot. I think if you're Detroit, I think you have to. Yeah, I'm with you. I think you have to. I mean, you can't like if you don't think you're going to get the most awesomest of awesomest offers, then you don't. Like if you're feeling lowballed, then you don't do it. But if you get the right perfect offer that sets your team up for years, you got to do it.
Yep. And there's, the Dodgers are motivated on everyone. But even the Rays have been talked about, and the Rays make some sense.
Yeah.
Because pitching is their DNA. Pitching and defense is their DNA. And they're one of those teams that, when they're good, they are better than the sum of their parts. And they're having one of those series this year, leading the AL East. They have a chance to make a serious run at it this year. So,
okay.
and I remember.
Here would be my question for you about the Rays. If they play the Dodgers as of today, as of the end of this recording, teams being equal, no trade deadline acquisitions, who wins the series?
Oh, sorry, come again. You just glitched there for a second.
If the Rays and Dodgers play this series as of right now, no trades have happened. The teams as playing as is. Who wins the series?
Rays, Dodgers.
Okay, you add Tarek Skubal to the Rays. Who wins?
Toss up. It's closer to Dodgers Blue Jays from last year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think that there's a team even close to the Rays at this point in the American League. And if they get Tarek Skubal, I don't think the Yankees healthy are even a close to a matchup to the Rays. I just don't like. I just don't think the Yankees play good enough baseball on a consistent level to beat the Rays.
The Rays are a playoff type team, and the Yankees are not.
Yeah. Now, let me just toss another scenario for you. Brewers Dodgers. Right now, who wins?
Probably right now, probably Dodgers, but here's why I think the Brewers also make sense for Tarek Skubal. Another team that pitching is their DNA. Of course, they have Jacob Mizorowski, but they have some injury issues in their rotation. They have multiple young starters they're relying on. They lost to the Dodgers in October last year. Bringing in Tarek Skubal would check all those boxes and give them a chance to win that playoff series this year.
Yeah. And I think the Dodgers' Achilles heel at this point is their bullpen. I really think that that's the way. If you can get away from their starting pitching and get into that bullpen as quickly as possible, I think you have a chance to win.
Yeah.
That's that's your best shot at this
Well,
point. That lineup is too tough to like in terms of a lineup. It's so difficult they beat them. Like they just have too many parts. But that bullpen, you saw it tonight. That's a shaky bullpen, and even with Sasaki in it and Diaz sort of coming back, just not completely sold on that bullpen yet. But um,
we'll see what they do this week to address that too. So there's been reports that they're super motivated to three-peat. So we'll see.
oh, I'm absolutely certain that they are motivated to five Pete. But and I don't forget they have an opportunity to get Terry Skubal as much as everybody. And
Yep.
I just want to remind everybody that Game Five series, Detroit and the Mariners in the ALDS, Skubal struck out 11.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
guy,
He's a monster.
yeah.
Um. Another maybe out of left field. I'll use that shameless line for the purposes of this podcast. Arm that has been mentioned as maybe a possible trade candidate. Freddie Peralta from the Mets. His name has been out there a little bit. And I bring this up with a smaller trade that happened today. The Twins get reliever AJ Minter from the Mets. So the Mets are starting to sell a bit. The Twins, interestingly, that would signal that they are at least modestly buying because they're in it in the Central. But Freddie Peralta with the Mets, there's been a little bit of talk about the Mets trying to get him out, possibly. And we talked about the Brewers as it related to Tarek Skubal with Freddie Peralta's contract being up. He just came off of 8 great years with the Brewers before being traded to the Mets. Could the Brewers trade for him back? I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah,
He
that would be a great reunion.
he's had a bad year with the Mets. He's not alone in being a big addition who's had a bad year with the Mets. So for him to go back where he was for a long time, enjoyed a lot of success, staff around him who know him, cost isn't gonna be crazy because he hasn't produced with the Mets, so the leverage for the Mets isn't gonna be there. I could see that one's a little bit more of a bet on yourself if you're the Brewers that we can turn the clock back and dial him back in. But that's another one I could see.
Yeah, I could see that one too. I think that might be the sneak. Like the Skubal will be the flash ad, but whoever gets Peralta, that will be a sneaky good ad too. And the Mets have to. And the Mets just they need to figure out who the hell they are. They need to stop thinking that they're the Yankees and just throw all this money and waste this money. Um, there's no developmental model in the Mets. It has been a team that has been selfish for years and all about themselves. The guy that I actually think they need to get the hell out of there. I think that sign in a Juan Soto. I I know people love Juan. I'm not a Juan Soto guy. I just don't believe that he's as good as people think he is. Um, yeah, you can give me stats. I just don't believe that he's. I don't believe Juan Soto is in it for the team. I believe that he's in it for Juan Soto, and I think that he's been the epitome. If the if the Yankees wanted Juan Soto, they would have kept Juan Soto. Like
Yep.
we hate we're not lovers of the Yankees, but we do know what the Yankees understand what the Yankees understand what good baseball is. They've proven that over the years. And they've been more than willing to spend money on everybody else. They've always been able to do it. And they didn't sign Juan Soto. I think that was more of a message to me than the Mets signing Juan Soto. Anyway, but yeah.
To me, to me, the Mets and the Dodgers both like to throw money around, but there's a big difference. To me, the Mets are a rich kid with no identity, and the difference maker with the Dodgers, and we've talked about it a little bit in the past when we did the rewatch of the Schneider and Roberts podcast talking about the World Series from last year. Is yeah, the Dodgers spend like crazy, but they're one of the best. They're also one of the best developmental and best culture driven organizations. It starts within there,
Yep.
and then they use their money to get whoever they want to make sure it gets finished off. Where the Mets the Mets ownership just thought they could fly in, buy a whole new team, and it would work because they could buy whoever they want. But there's no identity there. Um, yeah, that's it. You know, that's the difference for me. They brought in a bunch of new parts, randomly slapped it together, and thought it would automatically work.
Yeah. A
So
great example of what if with the Dodgers, the first example I always bring up is Miguel Rojas, who just will do whatever this team wants for him. If he needs to be, and you saw that in the World Series, sorry, but I mean, he's carrying out. He was the one that carried out the 2025 World Series trophy at opening day. That's how much that he means to the Dodgers team. And there's other players too that you have to remember with the Dodgers to remember. Tommy Edman is a guy that I just think is completely under the radar. The guy can hits third, he hits lead off on Thursday. He hits wherever you can hit whatever you need to.
and
Great defensive player. Andy Pajes finds a way in this lineup as well. He's a key guy, gets key hits. And Dalton Rushing Will Smith has been on the IL for how long? And this guy is he's cranking out home runs as well. So it's just not only about the $1 million stars. It's those soul guys that Dodgers are able to find and keep.
they
That yeah, they're
they
so
have
good.
they have a culture and an identity and a standard, and then they bring in the high priced talent, but they have to fall in line because they're joining a moving train that does it a certain way. and I think we talked about it in the past, but I think Dave Roberts is huge in that. Um, Whereas yeah, I think we've gone around it well enough, but yeah, there's an identity there, there's a system there, and the Mets, there is nothing there. It's the inmates running the asylum with the Mets. Um, another big market.
Before
Sorry.
we go on, I just
Yep.
one more thing I want to say. There's so many people that say that the Dodgers are ruining baseball because of payroll. I foundationally disagree with that. It is the
Yep.
Mets that are ruining baseball, not the Dodgers. If the
That's an
Dodgers are making baseball good, the Mets are the one that need to have the finger pointed at ruining baseball.
I totally agree that the Dodgers aren't ruining baseball because of their payroll, and kind of my reasoning has always been, well, the Blue Jays are doing it too,
Yep.
not to the same degree, but they're still a $300 million payroll.
Yep.
How is it for you that the Mets are ruining baseball and they're not just a
Well,
bad
they're
team?
throwing all this money out and they're not competing. That's wrecking baseball to me. Like, and they're on your TV all the time because they're in New York. Like these guys are the glorified Colorado Rockies. Why do we need to watch them? Because they're in New York? Who cares? Does anybody care about the Mets? Like seriously.
Yeah.
The Yankees have been by far the number one baseball team over there for years. Like just for me, like if you want to point the finger at people putting baseball where it is in terms of this financial gluttony, it's the Mets, not the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bigger conversation to have during free agency, but for me, it's more the ownerships in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati that have legacy franchises and markets and will not pay to even try. But
Yeah,
I think
that's
we can revisit that during what we hope will be free agency this winter,
yeah,
with what's
touching wood.
looming later.
Yeah.
But some interesting, and we didn't chat about this off air, but some interesting comments out of Philadelphia this week. Did you see the Bryce Harper comments and the Don Mattingly comments about the Bryce Harper comments?
I'm going to be honest, I did not. No.
All right, so basically, Bryce Harper said to the media that we could use some more pieces in here at the deadline. We could use some acquisitions. And then Don Mattingly, in a very calm, measured way, um, in his pregame scrum in the dugout, um, kind of dismissed that a little bit in saying that, well, that's how players think. They can all play armchair GM. They like spending the owner's money, and kind of calmly defended uh, management and ownership, and also not in a sharp way, but he also said that if he's saying that we need somebody else, he's saying that he doesn't like somebody in this room. He didn't. So he said it very calmly, so there was no emotion, or I didn't take any controversy out of how he said it. But it's interesting that he would say that, and I think he's right. Um, but
Mattingly is right. I mean,
yeah, I agree with Matt Mattingly. I think he's kind of in a weird spot where he's feeling like he can't betray his bosses in management and ownership, and he's probably trying to keep his clubhouse together a little bit. But where do you stand on the Phillies? They made the manager change, elevated Matt Mattingly, worked for a bit, but they are now 2-8 in their last 10. 7 back at the Braves again in the NL East, and but they are in the top wild card spot, second wild card spot, I think. I'll confirm that. They're in a wild card spot.
Yeah.
Where is this here? They are in tied for the second wild card spot. But losers of 8 of 10. So where do you stand on the Phillies?
I think they got bullpen issues. I think they're starting pitching. I mean, Sanchez is a Cy Young guy. Wheeler's a Cy Young guy. I don't think there's much to complain about that. I think offensively, you've got Schwarber, Harper, Marsh. Real Muto is a top end catcher. There's a lot of talent in Philly. But I think ultimately, with it's so weird to say this about a Philly team and a Dodger team. But I just don't think they have that Tommy Edman, Andy Pajes, Miguel Rojas guy that I believe can get them over the top. I think they're a little all style, and I think they lack substance. It's just so interesting how much Philly gets all this attention, and the Atlanta Braves just keep cooking. Chris Sale is going for a Cy Young. They just pitch, 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 pitch. They play to the core of their identity, and Philly is trying to make all these flashy moves. Yeah, they definitely need bullpen help. I think that's their big thing, but they're very left-handed heavy as well with Crawford, Marsh, Schwarber, Harper. They only got real one. Alec Bohm is an okay right-hand bat. Real Muto is an okay right-hand bat. That's I guess the thing ultimately for me is I don't. Who's that Pajes Edmund guy in Philadelphia? Who's that Miguel Rojas guy in Philadelphia that will do whatever it takes to win? I just don't think they have that guy.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, yeah, you said it. They have the big names, but to me, I think their core might be getting older, and in this last stretch, their big bats haven't been hitting of late, which has led to the slump. But yeah, interesting spot. Because they're getting older, I think they need to go for it because their window for this core that they have in place anyways is probably closing. So they're still in a wild card spot, so I would expect them to be aggressive at the deadline.
Yeah, they could use. They would be a team that I think could use an Arozarena. Um, I don't know what Philly has to offer back. Maybe we'll message someone. George Springer might be a guy that they look at too. I wonder if when we head to talk about the Blue Jays. By the way, I will say this though: if the Phillies are not interested in Don Mattingly next year, I want the Mariners to have a long chat with that man. I would love to see Don Mattingly in a Mariners managerial uniform. I think he's a smart, successful guy that will just command immediate respect in that room, and he has a winning pedigree. If there was a guy that I want to replace Dan Wilson with, it is Don Mattingly.
Yep. 100%. I would 100% agree with you on that. And it's interesting that the Jays had him in-house and let him go. But that's a different conversation entirely. But yeah, totally agree that he's got the managerial experience. He has, to me, seems like he has a good personality and a good temperament. And he brings the clout of an extremely good ex-player. So yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. Um, Talking about my Blue Jays.
Before we
Um,
do that, can we?
yeah.
There's a few other. Let's do these other names here, and then we'll go to the
Oh
Blue.
yeah. Yep.
So some of the other names, like there's not the NHL trade list board where everybody ranks, but here's some of the names. I'm just going to toss them out here. Actually, I'll toss one name out here because I think it does relate a little bit. Do you see Mason Miller moving? As I could see Philly being interested in a guy like him.
Um, I'm not gonna say absolutely no, but I think it would surprise me. I think if San Diego gets an offer that knocks their socks off, they would. But they're still in it. So I don't think they're motivated to do it.
All right. What about Jordan Alvarez?
Interesting. Um,
The
man, they
argument
still.
that you the argument would be sort of similar to the Skubal argument is if you can get you if you do the reboot, if you need to reboot, and I think the Astros do need to look at a reboot here, you would get a lot for Jordan Alvarez.
Yeah. Um, they're only one game out of the wild card though. Like they're I don't see that happening. They're too close. They're too close to the playoffs this year. To give up on it. Um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these big names have that. If they get a crazy offer, then they'd have to look at it. But you're right. They have a lot of aging top players, and they're due for a reboot at some point or a retool or whatever word you want to use. I just, man, that's tough for a team that's only one game out of having a ticket.
Okay, some players that are teams that I think are definitely selling. Zach Neto of the Angels.
He is, yeah. I think the Angels could get a ton for him because he's still controllable
Yep.
for 3 more years, and that's an impact bat shortstop on a team that is horrendous. So yeah, I think the Angels, man, the Angels should be shopping that one, and because I think there's teams out there that would cough up for it. So yeah, I would love to see what that would look like. I think that would be smart for the Angels to try to do that, and I would love to see it.
Yeah, he's a guy like he's an exciting baseball player too that probably could use a better market for sure. Because he's probably I would compare him to a little bit to Troy Tulowitzki, like if he's in a better like a place where baseball is more popular, or he'd get more eyes on, I think he would be considered a top end shortstop in baseball. Hunter Goodman, catcher with the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I mean the Rockies aren't doing anything with them, and catcher who hits a lot of bombs. So yeah, it would make sense from a Rockies perspective.
Yeah, I think that one's interesting as well. Yeah, Rockies going nowhere. The other one, because people seem really divided on him. Could you see a Ronan Anthony trade in at the deadline, or is that likely in the off season?
I haven't really followed the Anthony situation all that much. What's going on? Wasn't he
I
supposed
think
to be one of their pillars? Like, what's going on with him?
a lot of people are kind of falling out of favor with him. I think people are just questioning his toughness. And if you're doing that in Boston, that's probably not the best thing to have happen. But there might be a good player out of there. I don't know. I'm not sold on. I like look. The Red Sox did have been on this went on this wonderful run here. I get it, but even Thursday night, they're yelling at each other in this lock, and the Duran is yelling at Contreras, and because he wasn't running, and I just still say I still don't. I'm not buying the Red Sox at this point. I don't think that they're. I think they got hot. I don't. I think there's a difference between being hot and being a good team. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't. The Red Sox won't sell, but I also doubt very much they're going to make a really intelligent baseball move either. So it's kind of where I'm at with the Boston Red Sox. But Anthony is an interesting name. I wouldn't be surprised about.
Well, I mean, he's 22 still.
Yeah.
So if they feel there's gonna be no room for him there, they could get something really good back that could speed up their timeline. So maybe they make a baseball trade there, get some sort of a veteran back who can play right away. But that'd be hard to give up a 22-year-old who's been viewed as a top prospect.
Well, they acquired Curtis Mead, and he went immediately on the IL with a wrist
Ah,
injury.
that's right.
Yeah, that. Yeah. So yeah. Just one more thing, one more name on the Nationals. I'm having a hard time believing that they're going to trade C.J. Abrams. That's crazy to me. That, that team
Yeah,
is. I mean, you just watched them
yeah.
here playing Toronto, so you probably have a better insight on them than I do. But the team is a really talented offensively. I mean, unless they're trying to get some pitching help.
Yeah, so yeah, the Blue Jays were just there for 3 games. And, I was talking about other teams like the Rays who are better than the sum of their parts. The Nats were, at the time of that series, were the best offense in baseball, but very sloppy defensively. Pitching's not there yet. Fundamentals is lacking. They're just not. They can hit, but it's James Wood, Abram, Lyle is turning it on now. It's they're kind of 3 or 4 young bats who are doing pretty much all the hitting right now. That team is on the rise. It's coming up for sure, but it's not there yet. But there is something there.
Mhm.
So I think they got to keep letting it grow. And trading away a CJ Abrams when he is maybe your biggest pillar in something that is building. They're in contention, even though I think they'll be, when it comes to playoff time, they'll end up being a pretender this year. But no, trading him doesn't make any sense. But if we can tie this sort of to the Marlins situation, there was a report from the Athletic that the Marlins are willing to listen on Liam Hicks, Otto Lopez, like you mentioned, Xavier Edwards, and Roberto Hernandez, who is an outfielder who leads them in home runs. The Marlins one was surprising to see that because we've mainly you talked about them this year on the podcast as a team that's rising, but the Marlins one didn't shock me because it's the Marlins. This is what they do. They love them a fire sale, no matter if it makes sense or not. Kind of sort of similar situations with the Marlins and the Nats, but no. That CJ Abrams trade doesn't make sense. They're not in a spot where they need to get multiple young pieces. They need to let their young cornerstones they already have keep growing and keep supplementing and building something. So
I mean, I think the Marlins are a very young, exciting team. I think they're going to be a threat next year for a playoff spot. I don't think they need to, unless they're getting. Like, I just think, like Washington, like you said about Washington, I just think they need to let it cook.
yeah,
They're right
and
there. I really believe that with this team.
difference is Washington has proven in the recent past that they will build a contender to fruition, and the Marlins haven't proven that. The Marlins have won 2 rings in the distant past, but they immediately fire sailed after both of them. So I don't trust the Marlins organizationally to see that through. I would trust the Nationals more to see it through.
Yes, I would agree with you. I hope an adult is and running if there's an adult in the room in Miami. Please have an adult in that room.
Now, if the Marlins want to give Otto Lopez or Liam Hicks or any of those 4 guys, if the Marlins want to give any of those 4 guys to the Blue Jays, please do. I would love any of those 4 Marlins on the Jays.
I would love any of those guys on the Mariners too, but like like from a fan perspective, I totally understand where you and I are coming from. Like from a team fan perspective, from a baseball fan perspective, we need some of these teams that you talked about, like the Cincinnati's, the Pittsburghs, the Miami Marlins, some of these teams that have just sitting here and have just wasted time to start doing something. Because
Yeah.
you're right, that's ruining baseball more than these teams that are spending money. Although I think the Mets are ruining baseball, but I think
And
that this criticism, this is another team, the Miami Marlins, that are at the forefront of this criticism of just perpetually not doing anything.
yeah. And you have this exciting building team in Miami, and you have crowds of 10, 15,000 because the market doesn't trust the ownership.
Yep.
And you have a better Pittsburgh team this year, and I don't think they're drawing that great either. And Cincinnati, just the biggest legacy market there is, maybe, and they haven't drawn because they don't trust the ownership. I think, yeah, tying it back to what we were talking about earlier, I think that's your problem in baseball.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the Blue Jays. What is going on there?
Well, I just said that they played the Nats for
for
3.
three.
Oh,
Oh,
and I'm
and
getting a
I'm getting a
little bit of
bit of
feedback
feedback
here.
here.
Just a
A
second.
second.
Oh,
My voice is coming back to me in the computer pretty loud at the moment. There we go.
okay.
I think that's better.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, the Jays are playing St. Louis next at home, leading into the deadline. But I think they're 5.5 out of the wild card. Yep. So they've had Kevin Gausman talking about the deadline coming up and offering his opinions on the difference between the clubhouse last year and this year. So it's firmly eyes on the trade deadline, who's going to go, who might not go. So I wonder if you just want to go name by name, and I'll kind of give my expectations on name by name, and you can fire back if you want.
Sure. I think there's 4 fairly obvious and maybe 4 interesting questions. So let's start with Gausman. 14 earned runs over 20 innings pitch, 20.2 innings pitch since in 4 starts in July. What happens there?
I would expect him to move. He's not going to get you a flashy return. You're not looking at, a top 5 prospect or a major leaguer who can step in right away. But I think you're going to get something from a team that needs to add reliable, proven starting pitching. This is a guy that started Game 6 of the World Series last year. He's been good for a long time, durable. So, a team like, maybe a team like the White Sox could be interested, or Brewers we talked about. Their rotation's really good, but it's really young. So adding some experience in the rotation could be good for them. I would expect, and there's been a lot of talk to the media from Gausman about being reflective of his time in Toronto. So I think all sides are prepared for a trade. So I'd expect him to
go. For who gets you more, Gausman or Peralta?
Wow, that's interesting. I think Gausman. Gausman is the safer bet. Peralta's had a really bad year, so you're banking on him snapping out of that. And I think the only team with a legitimate case to think that they can fix Peralta quickly is the Brewers. So I think the floor is much higher for Gausman, and for a playoff-bound team looking to add a veteran starter, I think that higher floor and that predictability is what you're looking for. So I think Gausman gets you more.
All right. George Springer, who you posted, oh my gosh, he got 2 home runs. He's going to get us the entire world. I'm being facetious.
I did not post that. That was not the post, by the way.
I jest because I see that so much in hockey. Because, oh my gosh, Blake Coleman scored a goal. He's going to get us so much more. Or Connor that's kind of where my frustration, my eye roll comes from. But I totally understand where you're coming from. But anyway, what's happening with Springer?
I did post that his trade value is up because it is. He's hitting .288 with 4 home runs and a couple of doubles in July. He is a couple of months removed from a broken toe. His bat speed data is back up to the highest point it's been this season. So he's healthy, and he's a guy with a playoff pedigree as recently as last year. And he's had a really down year, but he's as good as he's been all year right now. So that's enough for a team similar to Gausman, for a team looking for experience, not as, not as a 3-4 hitter or a leadoff hitter in Springer's case, but a depth bat or a bench bat. Somebody's going to want that, and somebody's going to bet on him being able to tap into that experience and dial it up for a month in October. So I think I mentioned them for Gausman, but the team that the White Sox for me are more as a player for Springer. They're a young team on the rise. They've had a spectacular year on their schedule. A couple of years ago, they lost 120 games. Last year, they lost 100 games. And this year, they're leading the Central. But they're very young. And so I think a guy with Springer's pedigree and veteran leadership would be good for them. So I would expect someone to take Springer.
I'll toss Philadelphia in that conversation too. I think they could use a Springer. That's a guy that might be your what might be that missing sort of gut check piece that they have, but that they need. I mentioned before.
I think it would fit in the Phillies room for a different reason. They're an older team, full of veterans, full of probably a bit of big league ego, and he's a veteran big leaguer, been there, done that, rings on his fingers. So he could step into that room, and I think they would welcome him in.
And he has a relationship with Don Mattingly as well.
Yes, good call. And the Phillies fit for Springer.
Yeah. There's some people on your Blue Jays Twitter that don't like this guy. I think they're wrong. Dalton Varsho.
Yeah, it's been a rough year. I'm not convinced he goes somewhere because everything that makes him valuable has slid this year in a big way. His thing has been his defense, and his defense has taken a couple of steps back this year. So if you're a playoff-bound team looking to bring in an outfielder who has trouble getting the balls, that's an issue. And he's not an average hitter. He strikes out a lot. But his thing is he had 20 home run pop, even if he didn't hit every day or play every day, and because of his injuries. But this year the run production has dried up. I think he's still under 30 RBIs for the year. So injury-prone guy who can't catch the ball like he used to, and he's not hitting home runs. I don't see a lot there. I wouldn't be surprised if they can't move him.
I would take a chance on him. I think that I don't need him to play significant defense. I would use him in left-handed batting situations. I think he could still get you a key hit or two. This is the type of guy that the Yankees find ways to use and get success from. This would be a low sneaky pickup for me that I would seriously consider. I get his defense isn't what it was, totally fine, but I don't need that at this particular point in time. I need key hits, I need pitch hitting, and I think Dalton Varsho can do that.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then Shane Bieber.
Yeah. Shane Bieber had himself a night on Tuesday in Washington, a game that was rain delayed, and he came out in the bottom of the first inning recorded 2 outs, walked 6 batters, gave up 1 hit, 4 earned runs. Probably the worst start of his career, and it was wildly bad timing considering the Blue Jays are likely looking to move him. But also quite surprising given that his last 2 starts before Tuesday were probably his two best as a Blue Jay in the regular season. Against the White Sox and then the Rays in his previous 2 starts had gone 13 innings, allowing 1 run on 6 hits and 2 walks, so combined numbers. So it didn't help. It'll probably increase the questions coming from potential suitors to the Jays, but I think he still gets moved because he's shown the previous 2 starts showed a ton of progression from coming back from surgery, and we talked about it I think last week, how when the Blue Jays picked him up last year, he wasn't done rehab, and they rushed him back to pitch in the playoffs before he was properly rehabbed. And they still, I'll look it up, but they still gave up a pretty good prospect in the trade to get him. And now he's a year later. He's properly rehabbed now, it looks like, so I would expect the Jays to be able to get something pretty good.
Pitching prospect Kai Stefan. Or wait, Khal Stefan. Cal Stefan.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was a top 5, top 10 prospect at the time, I think. So they coughed up to get him. And I think he's a much safer bet for a team this year than he was for the Jays. So I would still hope that the Jays can get something pretty good for him.
Do you think he's got bullpen in him?
Yeah, I think so.
I see the Dodgers going after that. I could see the Phillies going after that. Probably the White Sox. We haven't talked about the Cubs. Really curious about what they're going to do. I could see them sneaking and doing some things. They got a guy in Seiya Suzuki who's a free agent next year. So I would think that they're going to be gunning. Arizona, we haven't talked about. Yeah, just a few other teams. We haven't talked about. We haven't talked about Atlanta either. But I could see Alex making a phone call or two to his old Blue Jay counterparts and asking about. Yeah, actually Bieber would make a complete sense in Atlanta because they could use him in a starting role, bullpen role.
Yep.
Yeah, there's something there for sure. Did you ever see the movie Moneyball?
I did.
Okay. Jeff Hoffman reminds me of Carlos Pena, where management was like, don't play Carlos Pena. Stop playing Pena in first base. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, who played the manager, rest in peace, says, I'm playing Pena because I need to justify my lineup decisions for interviews. So Billy Beane and management decided, well, we'll fix this and we'll trade Carlos Pena. I imagine that's what the Blue Jays will eventually do here with Jeff Hoffman. So, okay, Schneider, we don't want you to pitch Jeff Hoffman, and the solution is we're just going to trade him so you don't have him. Make sense?
Yeah, but I don't really see it that way completely. He blew up in late May, I want to say it was. But then as a setup guy, he's really good. The vast majority of the time, his strikeout numbers are outrageous. And so as a setup guy, I love him. He can't handle the ninth inning, but if you take him out in the ninth inning, he's great. So, and you have the closer that you wish you had last year, or you used last year in Louis Varland. So for me, Hoffman in the eighth and Varland in the ninth is what you want. The issue with Hoffman is when he has an off night, it's a spectacularly bad night that happens once, infrequently now, but when it happens, that's what, all the noise comes back because the fan base is scarred by Game 7 of the World Series. And the fan base is never going to get over that. And I wish they would. Because he has no chance to succeed in the market if they're not willing to forgive that. And fan bases are irrational and they have the right to be. But it feels like probably wildly dissimilar, but similar in a way. It feels like Bill Buckner. It feels like, he's the scapegoat for the Jays not having a ring last year. And Jays fans are just going to use him as a punching bag until they run him out of town. I think baseball-wise, their best back end of the bullpen going forward is Hoffman into Varland. But I think you're right in the sense that I don't know if he's going to get the chance to do it. I think, and we don't know how it's affecting him. We don't hear from him much, and players don't have to tell the truth when they're talking to media. So we don't know how he's doing with all the outside noise. He might just for himself need to get out. So I don't want to see Hoffman traded because I think baseball wise he's part of your best bullpen. But that could absolutely happen just because the market might eat him alive. So we'll see.
Fair enough. And then three more we'll just quickly ask about. Do you see Clement, Kirk, or Jimenez being moved?
When we talked about it a week or two ago, I was a hard no on Ernie Clement. But I can see it now. Only in the sense that there might not be a season next year. Mm-hmm. And if we do, we don't know how long it's going to be next year. And the Blue Jays have a couple of top prospects in the infield who are looking really good right now. Arjun Namala and Jojo Parker are both moving fast and have huge expectations. So if there's a world where this year's gone, and if there's a world where we might not have another real season for 2 years, one of those guys might be ready 2 years from now. So Ernie Clement, the postseason hits record holder, somebody's going to want that. Somebody wanting to replicate closer to what the 25 Blue Jays offense was, somebody's going to want him. So if the Blue Jays intend on having a reboot trade deadline to help them continue winning, whether it be next year or 2 years from now, whenever next season happens, I think in that world it makes sense if they get something back that helps them win now. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Clement, and with Alejandro Kirk. Again, last time we talked about him, I was a hard no because I loved the having the combo of Valenzuela and Kirk. Catching is hard to get a good catcher, and the Blue Jays have two. Yes, Kirk's had a really down year, but he's got 4 years and $50 million attached to him. If you can find someone to take that money, I think Brandon Valenzuela is going to only get better if he plays more, and the Jays can go out and find another backup catcher. If someone's willing to take on that contract, not that the Jays are overly worried about payroll these days, but getting that contract out and giving the reins to Valenzuela might be the best path. I don't know if there's a way there, but I can see it in that sense. And Andres Jimenez kind of the same way. I'm probably the contract 23 mil, probably too big for a shortstop who doesn't really hit. But and I don't know what the return would be going out from the Jays, but we talked about Zach Neto earlier in the show. If the Jays could bring in a Zach Neto, somehow get a Jimenez out and bring in a Zach Neto, you'd probably have to part with multiple of your top prospects, one of Namala or Parker, plus one of your AAA Major League Ready bats, another arm. But if there's a supercharge this reboot trade out there, I would love it to be Zach Neto, and I think it kind of makes sense with the state of the Jays infield.
Totally fair. All right. Well, that's a pretty detailed preview of the trade deadline, which I mean, we'll see what happens there with both the Mariners, the Blue Jays, and Major League Baseball. I think it will be very fascinating. Again, we'll be on podcasting on Monday, kind of recapping what happens. So stay tuned. Join us for that. We'll be. When's the trade deadline? What time is it at? 3 Eastern, 4 Eastern?
Something like that. I'm not sure the exact time.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Um, but follow us on the social medias that Jonathan will tell us on where that is, and we'll get that set up. But anything else we need to? It's 6 p.m. Eastern, so 3 Pacific, by the way. So, um, anything else we need to talk about?
I think we covered it pretty good.
All right. Yeah, I agree. All right. How do we follow us? How do you follow us?
Yeah, so all the socials, X is probably our most consistent in terms of communication. So X at LF Pod, Instagram's the same, Out of Left Field on Facebook. Full episodes live on YouTube. Audio episodes live on Spreaker. We will be sending out full episodes and segments on X. And keep tuned in to X mainly for the updates on the status of our Monday trade deadline reaction show. The intent is to go live on Monday p.m. after the deadline passes, and we will, once we firm up plans, we will communicate through X and Facebook, and then we will see you here live on Monday night.
All right. Yes, looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.